go? All right. I'll now call to order this meeting of the City of White House Council for this evening, Tuesday, May the 25th of 2021. It is 6:08 p.m. Ms. Hargis, will you please call the roll?
Sir James Wansley.
Here.
Zach Briscoe.
Here.
Ginger Cardwell. Paul Hickey.
Here.
Michael Lowe.
Here.
And Dick Jackson. We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Will you please stand if you're able and join Councilman Lowe as he leads us in a word of prayer?
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the freedom that we have to assemble tonight. Bless all our first responders. Bless us to make the best decisions for our city and to make it better than it is. We thank you so much for Home of the Brave and everything and all the things that you have blessed us in this country as we're still the envy of the world. Forgive us of our sins in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. All right, please be seated. Moving down the agenda to item C, we have presentations, starting with one, presentation of donation by Republic Services to the White House Police Department. I believe we have Mr. Gene Keenan here with Republic Services. Come on down, sir.
For the record, Honorable Mayor and Council, I'm Gene Keenan with Republic Services, and this is our annual donation that we alternate back and forth for police and fire. This year, the police department gets it. So, just for the record, I always say, this is not to put tires on the police cars. This is for the discretion of the chief to use for challenge coins, community things to get involved. You know, it's for them to be able to use. It's not budgeted items, and I think that it can go a long ways in doing community action. So, just present it. Well, it's for the police chief, but I have to give it to the, I guess you, right?
Well, there can be a picture.
You can hold it for a little while too. There you go. Thank you. Thank you for what you do.
Wait.
Thanks so much. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Glad to do it.
All right. We will always make room for that. And thanks again to Republic Service for being awesome community partners. We really appreciate our partnership with your organization. All right, moving on to item D2, Popular Annual Financial Report, PAFR, presentation. On report number 21-062-PDF. Mrs. Black, can you please make an introduction for the presenter?
Mayor and Council, Michaela Craig is a graduate student at the University of Texas in San Antonio, and she's been working with Finance Director Jennifer Lusk to prepare what's called a Popular Annual Financial Report. There's no government annual financial report that's popular, but the goal of this is to take the city's annual audit, which started in October 1st of 2019 through September 30th of 2020, and put that information into a document that is easily read and understood by citizens in the community. As you all know, the city's actual approved annual audit is somewhere in the realm of about 100 pages with a lot of words that don't make a lot of sense. So Michaela's done a great job working with Jennifer through a program called the PAFR Fellowship with an organization called ELGL. It's a lot of acronyms. It's engaging local government leaders to prepare this document, and we have Ms. Craig via video conference tonight to present her report. So if you'll give me a second, we'll get switched over to that.
And you'll find this report as an attachment in your packet, Council.
She can't hear us, so, because we were getting a little bit of reverb in the room, so we're trying to do this the best we can.
My name is Michaela Craig. I'm a graduate student at the University of Texas at San Antonio. This semester, I had the opportunity to work with the City of White House to create a popular annual financial report, or PAFR for short, as a PAFR Fellow. The PAFR Fellowship is hosted by two government organizations engaging local government leaders and the Government Finance Officers Association. For this presentation, I will just give a brief overview of what a PAFR is, and I will show you all a page from the PAFR that I created that I think truly captures the purpose of a PAFR. A PAFR is a document that governments use to communicate specific financial data to a broad audience, including citizens, elected officials, and those who serve on boards and commissions. When producing a PAFR, governments can bridge the gap between government finance and the technical jargon associated with it to individuals who do not have a background in this area, but they need or want to know the financial information. As I have learned throughout my training sessions with ELGO and GFOA, a PAFR contains a combination of elements from financial analysis, communications, and graphic design. There are three main questions that governments should keep in mind when creating a PAFR. Is the report appealing? Can those without a background in finance or accounting understand the information? And is the information presented in the PAFR useful? I took the goals of reader appeal, understandability, and usefulness into consideration while I was beginning the process of creating my PAFR. Before I began collecting the financial data, I envisioned my PAFR serving as sort of an easy-to-read roadmap for taxpayers to see where their tax dollars were being spent. I also entered into the production process with the intent of creating a user-friendly document, so readers would not be intimidated by the financial information that I was presenting in the PAFR. For example, on page 12 of the PAFR, I created a page that's geared towards homeowners in White House to visually show them how their tax dollars were spent in the previous fiscal year. I took financial information that most citizens would deem important, and I put it in an easy-to-understand dollar bill graphic. At the top of the page, readers can see how much an average homeowner in White House paid in property taxes per month in the previous fiscal year. And just below that, in the dollar bill graphic, I broke down how much of that monthly property tax payment went towards different city services. Overall, my hope is that this PAFR will encourage those who reside in the city of White House to learn more about their local government while empowering them to explore financial data that can sometimes be difficult to understand. Just to wrap things up, I want to thank Finance and Human Resources Director Jennifer Lusk and City Manager Leslie Black for providing me with the information and content I needed to complete the PAFR, as well as providing me with feedback throughout the production process. Thank you for your time.
Mayor and council, do you have any questions for Michaela? If you do, she can't hear you, so I'll have to type it out.
I would just like to say it's very well put together and it was a great job.
Yeah, it definitely is.
So we'll certainly pass that on to Michaela. Mayor and council, this does a couple of things. So for the city, it gives us the benefit of a document that we otherwise wouldn't have the time to put together, but it also benefits the graduate student in that they have viable work product when they go out into the field and begin looking for jobs that they can then present to future employers. We'll certainly be issuing a letter of recommendation for her as she finishes up grad school. But it also teaches graduate students what to look for when they're applying for a job. You know, one of the first things I look at are the city's financial documents to determine if it's a fiscally sound city or not, and whether or not you want to go to work there. So she's done a great job. It's been really well organized and communicative throughout the whole process. So we're really proud of the product that she put together for us.
Yeah, maybe she'll get the link to the YouTube video, but just want to say thanks for your time and professionalism and putting all this together. And it paints a really clear picture of the financial feasibility of the city and a really good job of making it simple to understand where tax dollars go, which I would imagine was due to her really having to dive in deep and get a full understanding of it to make such an abstract view on it. So you can definitely tell there was a lot of time and professionalism put into it.
When Jennifer and I received the draft, even I had a couple of questions. I'm like, is this funds, right? You know, even I didn't understand what some of the implications were in the audit on some of those things. I had to go back and look. In particular, there were, was it sales tax, property tax, and the utility fund?
Yes.
That I had to go back and I was like, wait a minute, I didn't know that was in there, so we had to go back and look at it, and sure enough, there is. So, anyway, she did a great job.
All right. So, anybody have any other questions or feedback on the report?
No, I like how it really, I mean, when we get you hit, the nail on the head earlier, when you talk about the 100-page audit we get, if, as a citizen going through that, there's a lot of information to take in there, and so this report really gets to the nuts and bolts and helps break it down, so I appreciate the hard work you guys worked with her on and getting that knocked out.
Yeah, it'd be great to share this, just kind of as a public document, because this looks like something that wouldn't even require much instruction to understand. It's a lot of graphics. So I think it would answer a lot of questions that some in the public at large might have about our finances. And it looks to be social media ready. Alright. My page is loading. I'll switch over to this. All right, again, thank you, Ms. Craig, for your time and energy on that. We really appreciate it. And keep an eye on openings within the City of White House, now that you're familiar with this. All right, and that moves us down to item E, community interests. This section of the agenda shall allow for any member of the City Council, the mayor, or the city manager, the opportunity to discuss minor, non-actionable items, such as recognition, scheduling, and upcoming civic events that are not listed on this agenda and which require no action by the council. Does anyone have anything else to add on the matter of community interest? Oh, here we go.
Mayor and council, just a few things. A reminder that White House High School graduation ceremonies will be held this Friday at 8:30 at the stadium.
Rain or shine.
Rain or shine. Well, we'll keep an eye on the weather and we'll send any updates or contingency plans out Friday afternoon. The farmer's market again continues here every Saturday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. here at City Hall. I sent you all an email last week about our employee banquet, so if you're interested in attending, please reach out to myself or Jennifer and let us know. It'll be Friday, June 18th at Montez. And then the Parks Committee held a work day at Black Hawk Creek Trail on Sunday. Mayor, I don't know if you want to speak to a little bit of the great things that happened out there, or I'll be happy to.
Yeah, it was a great turnout. So we had 2 skid steers donated for the work. And then we also have an agreement with other people that come out and help that if they bring their large equipment, then the city will reimburse them for engine hours, which is, the least we can do for getting access to that equipment. But a lot of volunteers that were our trail stewards, of course, Simpson's Bike and Sail, the Tyler Bike Club, and Boy Scout Troop 359. Some of the 6th graders were out there. They started off by clearing the trails. The 6th graders, the Boy Scout troops did, cleared the trails, did some pruning, and then by the time they made it back up to the trailhead, the park benches had arrived. So the city, as a part of our budget item for this year, the trail stewards decided a good use of those funds would be to install benches out there. So you'll see a few of those benches out by the trailhead, and they're tables. They're actually picnic tables. They're not benches. And then they were going to identify a couple of spots along the trail for the other 2 to go. So I'm curious on where those line up. But the Boy Scouts put a finish on them. They're pre-assembled tables from Lowe's. So they were just kind of raw, unfinished wood. So they put a layer of protection out there to help them resist the rain a little bit. But yeah, it was a great day. Didn't rain on them either. So got a lot of stuff done. And put some fun features in place, as well as shoring up other places. They actually did some work on the main road, like the utility road that goes down where the utility bridge is, to help reinforce that a little bit. So that'll help the city trucks as well. They were doing some work for that. Move the restrooms over inside the fence inside the gate, so not in that common staging area, but inside the gate. And based on some feedback from some local residents, went ahead and built a little wall to hide the porta potties. So you'll see a wooden fence there to get like a privacy screen, so that they don't have porta potties when they look out their window. They see a nice picket fence. But yeah, like they say, the trail stewards say they're members of other trail organizations in Tyler and north of Tyler, and they say they have something really special going on in White House, especially with the support that they get from the city. So that's really good to hear. All right. Anybody else have anything to add?
Just one. Farmer's market is just a super deal. Every Saturday I've come by here, and to me, the best is yet to come, because tomatoes and watermelons hadn't even arrived. So it's gonna be added lanyap, as we say. And, so it's just super neat, and I hope everybody's been to the market, because I love it. I think it's great, and everybody I've talked to just nothing but thumbs up, really positive.
It's grown every weekend, hasn't it? Vendors,
Yes.
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
They've almost outgrown this spot over here, so it's a tight fit on Saturday mornings.
Yeah, Ms. Morrison said that the vendors keep coming back, so that's a good sign. They're not just coming out once and they don't like it, so they keep coming back. So that's a sign of depth that we're getting there. It's not just width or breadth of the experience. So one final reminder: this Monday, the 31st, is Memorial Day. It's a federal holiday in the U.S. honoring and mourning the military personnel who died in performance of the military duties while serving in the United States Armed Forces. And we honor these soldiers by remembering their names, remembering their sacrifices, and embracing the freedoms and ideals that they died for. So it's a great holiday, and looking forward to it. I felt compelled to share that today because I'm coming up on the anniversary of a kid that I graduated with, Nelson Trent, who he was taken in Kandahar, Afghanistan, by an IED. And I saw pictures that came up, when that happened. It showed up in Facebook memories today, and he left behind a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old at the time. And his wife was deployed overseas and had to bring, she was deployed at the same time he was, and followed his body back. So anyway, looking forward to this long weekend, and yeah, that's all I can say about that. All right, so moving on to item F, public forum. We had no one sign up for public forum, so I will save you the description of that specific agenda item. So that takes us to item G, the consent agenda. So this section shall provide for items that require action by the council, but where no decision is anticipated. By a single motion, second affirmative majority vote, items under this section are approved without further discussion. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
If no one's got any objection, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. On to item H. Other action items, ordinances, resolutions, and public hearings. Item number 1 is the COVID-19 update. A, extend disaster declaration. Do you have something you'd like to share on this, Mrs. Black?
Mayor and council, not just a real big update on this time. Cases continue to grow, but significantly slower than what we saw at the same time last year. Vaccine distribution, of course, continues to grow as well. There will be a COVID-19 vaccine clinic on Wildcat Drive. I don't remember the date off the top of my head. It was in the newsletter on Friday.
Oh, okay.
So be sure to check that out if you're interested in having a vaccine here locally. Also, there's not been much new guidance come out in the last 2 weeks with the American Rescue Plan Act. We continue to wait for the state to determine what the process will be for us to request those funds, how we will report back to them on those funds. The good news about that, a little bit of a delay, is it does give some of the entitlement cities, the major metropolitan areas, maybe some time to put some things forth, some project ideas that we can look at and see what's getting funded versus what may not get funded. But we continue to work with other cities in our region to discuss ideas and possible projects for that funding. Other than that, all I ask is that you extend the disaster declaration for another 30 days.
All right, you have a recommendation.
I'll make a motion to extend the disaster declaration.
All right, I have a motion, I have a second.
Second.
Motion and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. That takes us to item 2, discussion of a memorial for Mr. Ray Terry. All right, we have you had a report on your packet about this, but Mr. Terry is a long time doesn't even serve it. He predates the city as a municipality, and his involvement in the community as well. I believe the road just north of us, Terry, is named after Mr. Terry, is that right? I mean,
I believe so.
it's among the roads like Acker and Hanks and Terry, yeah, I believe that's his namesake. And if you've ever driven up Acker Tap, you look to your left as you're heading towards Bascom, the display of lights that you saw, sometimes year round. I mean, they would stay up, and that was Mr. Terry just doing what he could for the community, kind of like he's done his whole life. So, as the report says, Mrs. Black and I were approached by several council members upon hearing about Mr. Terry's passing, about how is there anything that we could do in memory of Mr. Terry and his contribution to the community to kind of keep his spirit in the city. So this is a time for discussion on ideas and
Mayor, I'll just add that while Councilmember Jackson could not be here, his suggestion was a plaque or some sort to be permanently displayed in the park near where the Christmas tree would normally go, so either on one of the stone posts or a freestanding plaque.
yeah, I know that Councilman Jackson was in communication with some of the family members about what they would feel would best embody his memorial. So if that was his recommendation, that's what I would say. And I mean, what better way than somebody that hosts Christmas lights year round to be right there by the Christmas tree for his memory.
I think it's a great idea.
I do too.
So, Mayor and Council, in anticipation of this conversation, I did price out about a 12 by 12 plaque that we could do on one of those posts, and it would be about $600. We did not specifically budget for it, but we do have some line items that we could take that charge to and do an appropriate memorial if that's what the council directed.
I would leave it open for community funds as well.
Okay.
Give me a little bit of time on it. I think that we can reach that without it being a budget item.
Okay.
Does the sign light up? Okay. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
That wouldn't be, that'd be kind of a tacky. Yeah, but I think, I think that's a great idea. Anybody else have any suggestions or input? Okay. Well, I guess that's the action to staff is to, what's the turnaround time on that?
I would just have to check here. I don't know.
Yeah,
I just pulled one or two quotes. I didn't delve real deep into it until I had some directions.
I know somebody in law enforcement, you got a lot of experience with memorials and,
I was gonna say, I'd almost want to wait till Councilman Jackson gets back just to make sure there's nothing that's
Okay.
changed. And then also, like you had said, the community input too, before we tie ourselves down onto something. And so, making sure that they had a chance to get with the entire family.
okay. Did you want to see this on the next agenda or just a follow-up, maybe next agenda? We bring it back?
Okay.
Is that okay? All right. Well, that's great. I'm glad we're able to do something for somebody like Mr. Terry. All right. Item number 3 under agenda item H is the 2021-22 budget discussion. Yes, sirree. In your packet, you have some very detailed budget information. And now is the time for conversation. Mrs. Black, take it away, please.
Mayor and council, at the last meeting, we reviewed the utility fund. Tonight, we will review the general fund. As any good government employee, I like to use a lot of acronyms, so I added this slide for both your use and the public's use as we kind of walk through this. I will try to do better explaining what those acronyms mean as we go through it, but if I miss any, this is a pretty good starter list of the ones that we use frequently when we talk about budgeting. The general fund line item detail that was included in your packet is a preliminary starting point. We still have a lot of rates that are outstanding for the upcoming fiscal year, including health insurance for our employees, retirement, any host of rates that we do contractually with other agencies. So keep in mind that just like you do at your home budget, this is what it would take to maintain what we have today. Without any new rates from those contractors. This also does not include any identified needs for the upcoming year that would kind of move us forward. So what's in this line item budget right now is to maintain operations as they are today. We know that we have quite the list of needs that we will be presenting in a future meeting for your consideration. So this is just our first pass at where we stand today. In this first pass, budgeted revenues currently reflect a 1% increase. That's a really small increase. We have not plugged in any increases for increased property tax revenue. We feel like y'all need to have a more in-depth discussion of property taxes before we plug in any changes due to new construction or increased valuations. So we've kind of left that as is for now. Our budgeted expenditures show a 0.5% increase to maintain current service levels. So that's a really small increase from our department directors. Again, my direction to them this year, as it is every year, is tell me what you have to keep operations as they are today, and then we will talk about things that we can do to make sure that we're moving forward as an organization by increasing service levels or program offerings. Included in the packet are several slides that indicate the notable changes to each of those line items. So each of these numbers corresponds to a line item further in the report. I'm not going to go through each one of these unless you have specific questions on a particular line item. Very few of them are any material changes.
Was 502-511 moved out into an expense to consider? I
It
know.
will be on our projects list at the next meeting, yes, sir.
Sounds good.
So any of those, just kind of as a recap, the comprehensive plan, we were hoping to get a grant this current fiscal year to help fund that project, but we had budgeted our portion of the match, about $45,000 as a project last year. But once we realized that that project was not going to move forward as it stands today, we've pulled those funds back out and we'll put it back on the list for consideration at the next meeting. Again, these are just police notable changes and fire. Those are broken out separately just because they just have a few more line items than some of the other departments do. And then when you get down to revenues, expenditures, and the difference. So for the proposed budget as it stands today, we're anticipating just over $4.3 million in revenues and $4.2 million in expenses, with the difference of right at $29,000. When we finished the budget process for the current year, we're anticipating ending at about $8,000 in revenues over expenditures. And then you can also see our current year-to-date revenues of $4 million, expenditures of nearly $3 million, and a difference of $1.1 million. We've still got quite a little ways to go in the current fiscal year, so we anticipate that expenditures will increase and revenues They'll increase some, but for the most part, we have received the majority of all of our revenues for the current fiscal year.
Does year-to-date include May, or?
No, it will
No.
include through April.
Okay.
All right, and again, I think we talked about this at the last meeting, we are anticipating the receipt of nearly $2 million in American Rescue Plan funds that are not accounted for in this first pass. At the direction of our auditors, we will be creating a separate fund for that revenue and those expenditures for tracking purposes.
Is that similar to what we did with the utility fund whenever we had a bond that we issued, so we just drew out of that as appropriate?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's a very quick, high-level overview of the general fund revenues and expenditures. Staff is happy to answer any questions or go through any particular line items that you may have questions about.
So in the budget, the line items that were actually in the budget, the sales tax, the 1/8 of 1%, oh man, I need my glasses. That's Fund 10-4132. It shows a defined budget, it's kind of blank right now, and even the year-to-date looked low compared to how far we are. So I was just wondering, just trying to get my head wrapped around what's gonna be coming in to that. Does it wind up being around, what's the amount, 60,000? Just knowing that 9,000 was
So
kinda
it's
low.
closer to, yeah, it's about 69,000, and that actual account is, I have to have that in the general fund when the deposit comes in and I transfer it out. So if I was to rerun this right now, it would be 0 because I transferred it and put it in the EDC account.
That makes sense. Okay, so this is a temporary
Yes.
holding account with a batch withdrawal. I
This
got
is
you.
an accounting entry for the EDC fund.
I got you. All right. Well, good. I feel better about that.
Mayor and council, again, some of these revenues, along with the expenses, will change or increase as we move forward. Again, property taxes, when you have that discussion. Jennifer and I are also looking at sales tax collections. Historically, we've been over what we've budgeted so far, so we'll be looking to raise that slightly. We still want to be pretty conservative when we raise that revenue amount, but we feel confident we can get to an amount that will be slightly higher than what we've budgeted in years past, and still keep us without overextending, so anticipate that to come as well.
So for the American Rescue Plan funds, is the plan is to put them into an account and not touch them until we're absolutely sure the things that we use them for are targeted by those funds, correct?
So we're still waiting on guidance on the process of how it will work because we have to receive those funds from the state. We can't receive them directly from the US Treasury, but what I anticipate, based on what I've heard right now, the way that works is half the funds will be deposited to us, and then we report back to them what we spent the funds on. So it's kind of a prepayment for those programs, which is why the separate fund is even more important, so that we can track that fund balance and what revenues we have available. And then after you've spent it, you report it, and either the US Treasury, the state of Texas, or an auditing firm, which is usually what they do, is they hire an external auditing firm to process all of those projects, will give you the guidance as to whether or not it's an appropriate expenditure of those funds. So what we do to kind of mitigate that risk of just going out and spending this money on these projects is that we comb through the interim final rule, as it's called right now, from the US Treasury Service, which is about 150 pages worth of guidance on appropriate projects to spend those funds on. And we also have some contacts through whatever department is gonna manage that program to call and say, you know, here's what we're thinking, do you think that's appropriate, what avenue should we take? Just to make sure that we're not putting the city at risk for having to pay out funds that we weren't anticipating. So again, it'll be a long process. As we get more information for that, we will proceed cautiously but optimistically, so.
So what's the probability of those funds making it into this budget cycle?
I expect that the first half will be in the current fiscal year.
Okay.
And then the second half comes exactly 12 months later according to the legislation, so we would expect the other half to be in in the upcoming fiscal year. And I believe we have until December 31st of 2024 to expend those funds.
Okay. Well, that's great news. That sounds really positive. All right, anyone on council have any other questions about the budget as presented?
No questions for me.
There's still a lot that's unknown.
Yeah.
Right.
There is, but Mayor and Council, I will point out that to have the department directors in this first pass keep their expenditures within 0.5% of current expenditures is incredibly rare and phenomenal, and speaks to the frugality of the staff that we have here and how hard they work to keep those expenditures down.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And we were even able to move 1 or 2 capital projects off the CIP list and fund them as a matter of operations. So we're not taking a big fiscal hit in 1 year. We can spread that cost out over several years. So we're excited to get that done too.
Man, y'all are hitting your stride.
That's good news.
Yeah, thank you for your staff for putting this together and jumping on this early. As a council, I appreciate us being able to spend this much time on the budget process and the transparency that, you know, the city staff provides, and a lot of, I guess what you call hand-holding through the process to help us understand all of your acronyms that you guys swim in on a daily basis. So much appreciated. We're just getting ramped up. Budget season is just a little bit shorter than baseball season as far as length of months that it runs, but yeah, it's great to see it starting to come into focus a little bit.
So Mayor and Council, our next steps will be at the next meeting. We anticipate talking about some of those project and programming needs over and above what we're doing today, as well as maybe another look at tax rates. We'll be needing a little bit more direction from you all on what you would like to see, and that kind of goes hand in hand with those projects and programs of how we want to move the city forward and accomplish some other things on our goals and objectives. And then June 22nd, we will go back and review all funds. We will also include in that not only the general fund and the utility fund, we'll take a look at EDC and some of the smaller funds, debt funds and some of those kind of things. We'll take a look at those, and then in July, we have a lot of statutory requirements and deadlines that we have to meet in the month of July. And then in August, we will start our official public hearings. August, we'll start our official public hearings and hopefully adopt both the budget and the tax rate either in August or the first part of September.
Well, all right. Again, thank you very much for your presentation. And that takes us down to item number 4, consider future agenda items. Are there any items for consideration for the next council meeting? The budget will be on there, rest assured.
All budget, all the time.
Sounds like once Councilman Jackson's back, we're gonna discuss, finalize memorial accommodations for Mr. Terry. Anything else?
Can't think of anything needing to be added as of right now.
Nothing for me.
Okay. All right, that takes us to item I, administrative reports. Number 1, receive reports from staff. This is a reports-rich environment, this city council meeting. I really enjoyed it. I had them printed out at my desk at work, and I just kicked back and got after it.
Mayor and Council, just a few things to point out, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
We continue to see our issued permits perform well above average, so we're excited about that. We've met, I know Susan and I met with a developer a week or 2 ago, and I think the biggest hurdle that they're facing is just getting supplies. It's certainly not the market. They're selling them as fast as they can build them. It's just a matter of getting things like windows, lumber, shingles, you name it. They're having a hard time getting it, but we haven't seen those permit numbers slow down, so we're thankful for that. And then also, if you'll remember a few months ago, we talked about our response time on our fire department. Felt like it was a dispatching issue that we had corrected, and you'll see that in this month's report as well, that it's back down, well below our target goal, so.
I noticed they were below, EMS was up though. Was there some anomaly that may have occurred?
Well, it's
Some of
because, you know, again, it's the data that they present in that form, it's not static data. And so their emergency response times are in check with our contractual agreement, which is within the 7 minutes and 59 seconds.
Yeah, they showed to have a couple in the 12 to 13 minute range.
Right, but I don't believe those were emergencies, were they? Okay.
But, I mean, like, there's reasons that can occur, and so I'm taking that into account, but
Right.
I know you're monitoring, and we've had that discussion in the past. So,
And we, you know, I researched it when it was a concern over the course of the last 60 days, and it was a dispatch transferring of information as well, our times reflected what they were. But as a whole, I see EMS's presence much stronger here in the community. They're posting up way more here directly in the White House than they have been previously. So that makes me, we're leaving the same time the ambulance does. That makes me feel good.
good.
Yeah, there were two, I believe, outside of, that 9 minutes that were life-threatening.
I like the sales tax being up. Of course, we're having a really wet season right now, so I'm sure that'll counter the drop in water.
Yeah, it looks like we had a little dip in water and sewer sales. I would imagine that was attributed to the winter freeze. Was that month?
Actually, February for water and sewer shows to be up.
That would have been March, it looks like.
October,
March, there was a little
December,
bit of a
January,
dip.
February. Oh, March. I was off by one.
Yeah. I noticed it too.
Okay, fair enough.
But if they were like me, it was probably because they had made sure their sprinkler systems were
Yes.
off and weren't leaking and
Yeah.
didn't run them until they got repairmen out there to check them for them.
Everything looked good though.
The bump we're getting in other revenues in the general fund, item number 47, is that due to COVID relief funds? It shows that it was, well, yeah,
Probably.
yeah, okay.
Was it
Yeah, it almost
exponentially bigger?
has to be, yeah, it's, the original total budget was 176, and it's at 528.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
Just wondering if we hit a gold mine somewhere.
Well, we did get reimbursed for some COVID expenses, so
Okay.
almost $500,000.
Okay.
Not all in this fiscal year, that was split over last fiscal year and this fiscal year.
Utility fund. Did some of that go into the utility fund? Some of those COVID reimbursements?
We did all police and fire salaries for
Okay.
that.
Nice. Well, you all are running a well-oiled machine here.
I don't have any further questions on it.
Vehicles are working out. New vehicles are working well.
Great.
Starting to find their way in, getting folded into the fleet. All right.
We are starting to feel maybe the pinch of the vehicle market right now. As you all know, trying to find new or used vehicles. It's been difficult. We still had, I think, 4 public works trucks that we were waiting to receive. We're not sure now if we're gonna have to wait till the next year model comes out, but me and Jennifer keeps in close contact with Enterprise. They're keeping us updated on a regular basis about the status of those and things that we can do to maybe expedite some of those orders, but our public works trucks were in a little bit better shape than maybe some of our other fleet vehicles, particularly police, so we were glad that we were able to get our emergency response fleet transitioned early before we started experiencing some of those. But Enterprise has been great to search dealerships far and wide to try and get us the vehicles that we have on order. So we've been pleased with their process.
Excellent. All right, anything else to add on administrative reports? All right, we'll go down to, we have item J, executive session, there's nothing there, so that skips us down to K, and then L. Are there any remaining items for discussion? Hearing none, the time is now 6:53, and this meeting is adjourned.